So one of the films I caught this weekend was the brand new Hunger Games movie, The Hunger Games Catching Fire. So it's the film adaptation of Suzanne Collins' second book in the Hunger Games trilogy. The film takes place about a year after the events of the last film, The Hunger Games, and we're moving into the 75th annual Hunger Games. What happens is we're brought back to meet Katniss Everdeen and Peter Millark, who are the victors of the previous year's Hunger Games, and they're back living in their district, living in Victor Village, which looks like a pretty inhospitable place to live. Katniss is visited by President Snow and basically told that, look, what you did at the end of the last Hunger Games, people are sort of potentially looking at you as a symbol of hope and a symbol of rebellion, and we don't want this, and if this happens, I'm going to hold you personally responsible. I'm going to wipe out the district, I'm going to kill your family, and ultimately creates huge problems for Katniss. So puts her in a bit of a bind. And what, unbeknownst to Katniss, what's actually happening in the other districts is that rebellion and disquiet are starting to ferment. And President Snow, Donald Sutherland, he decides that in order to prevent rebellion and disquiet happening sort of throughout the provinces or the districts of Panem, what he's going to do is every 75th or every 25th Hunger Games, the capital does this thing called a quarter quell, and it basically is it's like a twist on the theme of the Hunger Games. So they introduce something new. What they do this year is that in order to potentially get rid of any of the victors of previous years who may be sort of held up as symbols of rebellion or resistance, they decide to put all the victors who are still alive back into the arena to fight. So that's the basic premise of the film. I saw the first Hunger Games last year when it came out in the cinema, and I subsequently bought it on DVD. I really enjoyed it. I thought it was very, very good. I didn't think it was an amazing film by any stretch of the imagination, but it was solid and it was good and it was enjoyable. I'm really happy to say that The Hunger Games Catching Fire is leaps and bounds better than the first film. It's really enjoyable. It's a better structure. It's shot in a better way. I really like the way when you're out in the districts and where you're in the places where there's the mines and the poverty, the tone and the palette's very washed out. It's very bleak. It really reflects the lives that the people are leading. But when you go to the capital and you're assailed by all this sort of opulence and grandeur. And I was listening to Mark Kermode's podcast on BBC Radio 5 Live, and he was saying that you're actually supposed to be disgusted by this opulence and the costumes and everything else, and you really are. You know, there's a huge distinction between the two. Now, it takes a while for them to get back to the arena, and they do the obligatory training and all that kind of thing. We meet the new contestants and sort of the new supporting characters, and some of these will apparently, also appear in Mockingjay, which is being split into two. Now, I haven't read the book, so I don't know the story, particularly well, beyond the movies and beyond what people tell me. But I am interested to see what will happen in the third and fourth movies. I suppose the best thing about this film really is Jennifer Lawrence. She's outstanding. Her performance is really excellent. Any film that I've seen Jennifer Lawrence in to date, be it like Winter's Bone, The Hunger Games itself, Last House on the Left, I mean, she's really, really outstanding in every way. For somebody who doesn't have a huge back catalogue of movies, and for somebody who's only in her early 20s, she's really, really impressive. Silver Linings Playbook, actually, she looked amazing, and she was fantastic. Obviously, she won the Best Actress Oscar for that, infamously falling on the way up the steps. But everybody seems to love her. She seems to be doing really well, and look forward to seeing her in a couple of upcoming films like American Hustle. The supporting cast sort of vary. Josh Hutcherson, who plays Peter Millark, is fine. He's not really given an awful lot to do in the film. Gail, who's played by Liam Hemsworth, is the love interest. This was one of the points which I kind of found a little bit hard to follow, because the love story between, or the love triangle between Katniss, Peeta, and Gail, it's not really fleshed out. I mean, she goes back to Gail periodically, and you see her sort of obviously having a very affectionate relationship. Obviously there's a background there, but it's not really fleshed out that well in the film. That was one of the only points I found which sort of didn't really stand up. The action sequences in the arena are fantastic. Really vivid, really brought to life. Really enjoyed that. President Snow, Donald Sutherland, is quite menacing. The new sort of games master is played by Philip Seymour Hoffman. And Philip Seymour Hoffman is always worth watching. He always really brings it. A number of people have commented though that one of the strange things about this film is that he has no costume, and it does appear that like he basically showed up in the day and said, look, I'm a proper actor, I'm not going wearing one of your silly costumes, but I'm going to do what I have to do. He plays a guy called Plutarch Heavensby, and there's a little bit of a twist in the tale in terms of what he does in relation to this. Really worth sort of, you know, keeping tuned in to see what happens there. It's really interesting. I actually wasn't expecting it, so but not having read the books, you know, that was a good twist and a good surprise. So, you know, I won't tell any more than that. Supporting cast, I said, very good. Jennifer Lawrence, excellent. The action is very good too. Overall, I have to say, I would recommend you go and see it. It was much better than I thought it was going to be. I was hoping it was going to be good. I didn't realise it was going to be 2 or 3 times better than the original Hunger Games. So definitely check it out. And another couple of reviews coming up shortly, but that's my review of the Hunger Games.